Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you. Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 44. Today is Wednesday, January 29th, which happens to be the release date for Hornsby and Halo number 3 and Redcoat number 9. I am Nick, and as usual, I'm joined by my better half, Snoggle, and a very special guest. My dear, can you believe we have another creator of comic book renown on the show?
It's a great way to start 2025.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
So, in our traditional fashion, we must tell everyone about his bona fides, and then we'll get to chatting. He's a famed comic book editor and writer who got his start with DC in 1993. After 14 years of primarily editing, he became a full-time writer in 2007, penning Black Adam: The Dark Age, many issues of Nightwing, Batman and Robin, and Green Lantern Corps, just to name a few. In that time, he began collaborating with Geoff Johns during the iconic Blackest Night and Brightest Day events. He went on to write a lengthy run on Detective Comics and to create the Super Son series with Jorge Jimenez, and wrote the screenplay for the DC Animated Universe iteration of The Death of Superman. But in 2023, along with the other creators we have come to know and love, he co-founded the cooperative media company Ghost Machine, where he's the current co-creator of the Rocketfellers and Hornsby Halo. It's Peter Tomasi!
Hey! Woo! Yay!
Welcome to the show, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here. Glad to be here. It's nice to be here with your 30 years of work. Early 1990s were a long, long time ago.
I remember.
But when I hear 1993, I don't register it as 30 years ago until someone does the math.
It's tough. Every time you don't hear, when you hear that number, it doesn't, it's weird. The 90s don't seem that far back, but man, they are. And here we are, 2025. Yep. Yeah, no, it's been a long, strange trip for me. It's been mostly a DC Comics ride, but thankfully, Geoff Johns had a great idea one day, and we all joined up and said, "Sure, let's do this cool thing." And Ghost Machine was born, and now here we are. Books are out and running, and it's been great. It's been great.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just running; they're off to the races, man. I think we just got solicits for like issues 13, 14 or something with some of the series, and even in the two that you guys have going, it's like in the 5s and the 6s. So
sixes are ready. I know it goes so fast. It's crazy. It is crazy. So, but it's exciting. It's these books that we're all a part of, and I get to see early stages of stuff, and everybody's just swinging for the fences on every issue. Almost feels like on every page. We're all just so psyched to do this, especially guys who've been in the business as long as all we have. It's been really nice. We all had a lot of freedom to a degree, but now it's a lot of freedom. So it's been great.
When you say there's always been some freedom, but now there's a whole lot of freedom. What's the most significant part of that
Well, just that there's no corporate, there's no corporatization in the middle. It's a writer and an artist, pure collaboration. Brian Cunningham is the editor, and he's great, but it's he edits the way I edit, which was back in the day. I used to, when I was an early morning guy, so I used to come in early in the morning about 8:30 to the DC offices, and people usually would straggle in around 10. But Archie Goodwin was always there early, one of the Mount Rushmore kind of writer editors, and I would just sit and talk to him and listen to him, then call freelancers in Europe, 5 hours ahead, 6 hours ahead, and just listen to him talking. But he would always, that was always his mandate. It was always, as an editor, step in only when you absolutely need to. After it's like directing, a movie. 80% of it is casting. So That's what he always believed. He says you cast the right people, you trust them, and then you let them do their thing because that's why you hired them, and you try not to get in the way. And that's the way Brian works. And he'll come up with a great little note sometimes on stuff, and it's we don't have to take now if it was DC, sort of have to take it, but here you say and you think about it, and if it's right on point, you're like, yeah, that makes it, anything that makes it better, I always take. So, but sometimes, over the course of that many years, you get people who also just want to, sometimes put a thumbprint on something, or they just have a different point of view, but your view was hopefully what you were hired for. So it's a balancing act. And here it's not. It's just, we're all part of this because we all know what we can do and what we have done. So we're allowed to, complete 100% creative freedom. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I feel like it really comes across, like, from a reader's perspective. Like, Nick's been reading comics a lot longer than I have, but you can really feel like the collaboration and the freedom you guys have to work together and like truly collaborate, like, comes through on the pages. Like, I've really enjoyed these 2 new books that you guys have. Like,
thank you. The collaboration aspect is key, and even this many years into my career, writing, as much as people would like, oh, I want to be a writer. When you do that for 30 years and you're sitting in a room by yourself, a big chunk of your life, it's very isolating. So there was a time where, I realized I would rather be talking to the guys who I knew were bringing this stuff to life, my words to life. And why, sometimes there are some places that don't want writers and artists to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And that was even more much in the day. It's the best. It's the best when you're collaborating because you're both really bringing that story to life. It can't be done by just one person. It's words and pictures, and you can write Watchmen, but if you have a Joe Schmo Scrubby and he can't, and the art looks like crap, what's Watchmen? Same way, and then but if same, and then on the reverse, you can have pretty pictures, but at a certain point you're not emotionally involved. Then you don't really. You're like, oh, flip through it and you're done. And you're not, it doesn't become something classical in your head, something that you want to revert back to and, look back for every couple of years. I mean, year one, I'm looking at the books that are in front of me on my shelves, and the stuff that I look to every so while. Like I read Batman year one once a year, and I go, look at how in those short amount of time, what he crafted with David Mazzucchelli. And it's amazing. Those 2 guys, that's a pure collaboration. That stuff is just as great because each one was firing on all cylinders at the same time and bringing their particular set of skills, as Liam Neeson would say, to their side of the book. And it's great because of both of them, not because of one of them.
You have posted a lot of videos, or maybe it's mostly Francis who has posted
mostly
them,
Francis.
But of the 2 of you in like rooms or doing stuff, and he, when he was on, he mentioned things like when you guys work together, sometimes you end up in tears. So tell us about what collaborating with him is like, because we've heard, like you mentioned a minute ago, that in some more corporate environments, some artists literally get a script and don't even talk to a writer.
Yeah, you won't even never meet them, not even talk to them. So here, the great thing is, I mean, Francis and I worked only once together in all those years on a one issue. It was one of the big crossovers. I'm trying to completely blank now. What is a dark metal thing?
Dark metal?
Okay. Yeah. But we always wanted to work together. So finally, when we got the chance to, I took advantage of that. I went up to Toronto and carved out a few days, and because, I wanted it to be a real collaboration. I wanted the artist to be a pure storyteller too, because the good ones are. They're awesome storytellers. And why would I not want to embrace that? So Francis and I, co-plotted, and at this point, you want your artist invested in it. I don't want a gun for hire. I want a guy who's, a Sundance to my Butch, or
there
whatever. And nice. It's that kind of scenario. So it works out great. And Francis and I are like really on the same page. Where I know we sound like an old married couple when we talk now. We're finishing each other's thoughts, or he'll say something that I was just about to say, or I'll in the same reverse on that. And yeah, it's a great collaboration. And same with Peter Schneeberg. I've known Peter for a long time, longer than Francis. I knew back when I was editing. I hired Peter to do Starman when I took over for Archie Goodwin when he died. So I had Peter on for many issues, and another wonderful, wonderful talent. Guy who I really feel is completely underrated in the business. And some people just don't get that shot, on a title or a character. But he's amazing. I mean, the black and whites of this work is phenomenal, and the colored up stuff is even better. But he can draw anything, and without photo ref and any of that stuff. And he's just so good. And I mean, he did my first creator-owned book, which was Light Brigade, back in '99, I think it was. May have been World War II book with angels and demons, and it was really crazy. And it's a beautiful book and beautifully colored by a guy named Bjarne Hansen. And then we did a book. I think he did 4 issues of The Mighty that we did also with DC, another creator-owned book. But these always just had little blips. No one's ever really seen these books. Very few people have come up to me at shows, and it's always a pleasure to see somebody found them and got to read them and enjoy them. But yeah, Peter did some awesome work on The Mighty, and then Chris Samnee came in one of his earlier works and did I think the next 7 issues of it. It's a great looking book. They're both Light Brigade and The Mighty. Great stuff. So Peter's another consummate talent. So to have both of these like unbelievable artists and yet amazing storytellers is great. Just great.
I've really enjoyed Peter on BPRD in the Hellboy universe. He did a run of that.
Yeah.
And, so did you co-plot Hornsby and Halo? Do you guys do that the same way you and Francis do? Or, obviously you have a long-term relationship, but what's the dynamic?
It's a little different. I think one of the problems too is the time. He's in Denmark. So
there you go.
Francis is same Eastern Standard Time, so that kind of works to an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to go to Denmark and spend a couple of days. That would be nice. maybe someday, maybe next year. That would be awesome. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that would be really nice to do. If I could carve the time out. But Pete's also. I mean, we'll get on the phone. We do a bunch of Zooms here and there, and just I'll say I'm thinking about this, and I'll ask him sometimes, what do you want to draw? What do you blah blah blah, and there's a lot of give and take on there too. So Peter's great too to talk to. He's got a really good head. Whenever an artist is a really good storyteller who can just tell a story as if like there's no. It's the way I write a lot of scripts is. It's funny. I mean, I don't want to put myself down, but I really try to, even comic scripts, because I was in film production many years before I got into comics. But one of the things I used to keep in my mind as a filmmaker, and it ended up playing out to a degree, even with comics, which was the Alfred Hitchcock thing of, you can tell a good movie if you turn the volume off and you can still follow what's happening and still be emotionally involved, then the director is doing a great job. Adding the actors, of course. So in a lot of my comics, sometimes I feel like only if I have the right collaborator. If I have the right collaborator, you can pull the word balloons out and you can follow those pictures, because I'm very descriptive in my scripts, but if the artist takes those and does his own wonderful magic on it too, you can know how to shoot that stuff and where to put the camera for the optimal effect. Because I'm not telling them where. Maybe I'll say shoot from behind this or do that, but they're putting it where they want. It's pretty amazing to watch. So the good ones are really good writers in their own head, and they write in another different way in that visual medium. So they're co-writers to a degree anyway. When you get a good artist, like I did that Batman and Robin issue years ago with Pat Gleason, silent issue, because I was like, okay. And the only way I can do that is because I could trust Pat as I can trust Francis or Peter Schneeberg. It's, you can only do that kind of stuff with an artist you're really simpatico with.
Yeah.
Was Batman because for me, was Batman your first like avenue into comics? Or what was it?
In terms of a character?
Or who you liked when you were
younger?
Yeah,
that you kind of grew up liking Batman. That was
Batman. I mean, my age, the Batman show was out, I was what, 4 or 5.
Uh-huh.
So but I caught most of that on the reruns later on in the late '60s, '70s. But my dad was a comic not a collector, but he loved comics. He loved Silver Surfer, Captain America, and actually, when we had gone back to his house in California, we had found some tattered old caps that broke my heart. They were in such bad condition.
Oh, really?
From the '40s. Oof.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was. But he loved it. He loved the Spectre. And the funny thing is the stuff that I really loved. I was a big Marvel. I grew up a Marvel fan, but I did love Batman. He was my favorite DC character. But the best stuff that I thought from coming out of DC at that point when I was growing up was the war and the Western books and the horror and some of the horror books. The art to me was just head and heels above any of the superhero work, and that's not to take away from Kurt Swan's Superman was great. But, when you look at Russ Heath and Joe Kubert, and there was just amazing amount of stuff that was just mind-boggling in the War in the Western books. And then there was Marvel, and Marvel just I was a big Spidey fan as a kid too. So it was Batman and Spidey growing up. Those were definitely my 2 earliest Halloween costumes. But yeah, no, it was Batman was the one that got me in as a comic reader, because I remember those were the first comics my dad, popped on the table. But then from there, was working at our old stationery store, as we used to call them, a soda shop. And, the trucks would come in, green Hudson News truck in New York, and I'd cut those ribbons and the wires and rack those books and pull the pristine ones off, the ones I wanted, and sat at the counter and had a nice chocolate egg cream, chocolate chip, ice cream, soda, whatever. And those were the days. So, but yeah, that was how I got into comics in terms of just pure, the pure enjoyment of it. And then the business end was just luckily that story was just a funny one where I was about to go to Los Angeles to go. I was writing I had to write a ton of spec screenplays. So my thing was what I wanted to write and direct. And I directed a whole bunch of short films and things like that. I came out of NYU Film School, blah, blah, blah. I literally was waiting tables, and I had worked out a deal with it was a national chain. So this called the Chart House, which were all on the water. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to work in Malibu, and the guy who in Malibu wanted to work in New York and was going to come and work in Dobbs Ferry in Westchester, where I was working. But I had thrown in some resumes like months before to DC and Marvel. And then I got a call from DC saying, "Hey, do you want to come in? We're starting a new company called Vertigo, and we're looking for assistants." So I was like, and I didn't have any desperation. I had my ticket. I was gone. And I was just like, yeah, what the hell, for experience? I get to go see the offices. So I went in. Then a girl got the job, this girl, Julie Roddenberry, who ended up going on to Sex and the City fame. And she was great. Julie was great. But they walked me around that day as I was leaving to a few editors at the DCU. I talked with one guy. And then 2 days before I was about to leave, he called and said, "Hey, you want to work for DC?" as my assistant. I was like, okay. So there was a real crossroad there, because I was going, and so I ended up saying, "Hey, can I got a plane ticket. I was going to go take a 2-week vacation. He's like, yeah, go take 2 weeks." So I went to LA for 2 weeks, came back, and cut to 2025.
Wow. So you mentioned earlier, and then Jeff Johns had a good idea. So between that and 2025, how did you and Jeff connect? You're both writers per se, so but you both have written things, I believe, if I understand correctly, together. Like, I've read Blackest Night, I've read Brightest Day. I love that era of DC Comics. Yeah. So what's your connection with Jeff, and what's your relationship like?
Jeff's literally like my best friend, one of my best friends. We just he came to New York. He was shooting a movie called Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson that he was working with Richard Donner.
I love that movie. Sorry, side note.
And he came by the DC offices, and so a couple of us had gone down and watched the filming. So then he ended up getting work, I believe, was it with Carl? I think it was with Mike Carlin first. I can't remember now what his first official work was, but but we talked a lot, and next thing we knew, we were I think I had him starting work on JSA with David Goyer, or no, it was James Robinson at that time, and then also moved on to Hawkman. Yeah, and then we just we just hit it off. We were really simpatico too, in terms of we'd spend hours talking story on the phone. It was a blast, and we just were always on the same wavelength. And he's just a awesome dude, consummate pro, and he must have been writing 5 books a month back then. He had so much stuff. He was just a machine back then. And so it was great. So we ended up once I wanted to edit GL Green Lantern, then I got Jeff on that, and we started to build that universe. I mean, from editing it to when I then transitioned to writing. I mean, I spent literally 10 straight years on Green Lantern. So, really long time. I don't want to, I think that's the best 10 years of Green. I mean, those 10 years, that stuff is pretty great. When I see open up these omnibuses that they've been doing, and see the stories, I really proud of them. I think they're pretty kick ass, man. We were really swinging for the fences on every issue of those too. So we were really proud of that stuff. And, we all love superheroes. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, we love Ghost Machine at this juncture, but, that's where we started, was superheroes were definitely the first love. But you do a lot of superheroes. The one thing we wanted to do was no superheroes when we came out of the game. So, because there's so many different genres, which is great. Over the years, it's gotten better. When I was growing up, it was you had superheroes, war, Western, horror, romance, Archie, this, all these great different genres. And then the superheroes crowded them out a lot. And then now they've made a comeback over the last couple of years, different genres. So it's crime stuff, whatever, the great Brubaker stuff with Sean Phillip. Just so much good stuff out there. I mean, if you're a comic fan, you just don't have enough money, man, to buy all the good stuff that's out there. So it's you gotta bring your A game, because people have a ton of stuff to look to, when you gotta really grab them and hold them and do your best stories. And I try to think about that every time I write. My name's on the book, and I never not go 110%, because I'm like, when you're a writer in comics, or the good thing about this business, there's that immortality factor. It's not like I'm some businessman and I'm shuffling papers and things like that. It's like the stuff that I do. My son's not a comic fan, but he's 22 now. People who've come to all the shows over the years, the thousands of people I've met, it's your immortality. So you want to make sure that people who are spending their real hard-earned dollars for these books are getting, your best. And, I take a lot of pride in making sure that, people may not like how I do something or why or what I do, but I can guarantee you that it's never hacked out. That's for sure. So
before Ghost Machine, you would have been immortalized for me as the best Guy Gardner writer that exists. Because
I'll take that trophy.
Yeah, because of Emerald Warriors. This is where Snoggle gets real patient with you and me for about 30 seconds. For Emerald Warriors,
I 100% know what you're talking about.
I love every moment. If any moment when Guy Gardner is in his bar on OA that Peter Tomasi wrote, if you have not read it, you need to go read that. But I love that era of Green Lantern, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was it's funny, whenever I take a book over, there's something specific I try to do, or I put as my own sort of rock to push up a cliff. And, obviously Guy was always my favorite Lantern. But I'd always felt like he had no respect as a character, because people loved to hate him to a degree, but they didn't even really care. They didn't care about him. He wasn't, he didn't have any. The writers that had been on him before had created some cool stuff, but I thought the problem was the one punch scene with Batman in Justice League International was just so great, that build up in that moment, that's really all he was ever known for, was the guy getting punched and knocked out in one shot by Batman. So my main mission was to make him as three-dimensional as possible. And really make readers love him and hate him and see his obnoxious side, see his, dare I say, sensitive side. And then I built that whole family thing around Guy too, that family of cops and all this stuff. So yeah, I took a lot of pride in building Guy Gardner up. I hope he's treated with the same respect in the upcoming DC film stuff. I'm hoping they do. I hope they do a good job with Guy. There's plenty of stuff there that I wrote. I'm hoping they do a good, I'm hoping they pull some good stuff, or they use that as a basis to just not make him a one note joke.
That series really does a great job of placing really graphic circumstance next to really sensitive, unexpected moments. And that is really similar in a lot of ways to, if we read the Rocketfellers or if we read Hornsby and Halo, both of those books have a familial sense, right? Like they're the family odysseys.
Yeah, it's just like Green Lantern and Batman, and there's a family vibe to all this stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. I didn't think about that until somebody actually mentioned that a couple months ago. A friend of mine, actually. And he was just like, yeah, you always seem to write, you always veer into the family zones on it. But it seems to be true. And I don't know, there's something more dramatic. There's something more grounding. There's something more relatable. There's, because everybody has one. And either they love around the people they're with or they hate them, but they have one. They have a family. And it's a lot of fun. And even friends can be family, the relationship I built with Guy and Kyle, was really important. And, now with the Rockefellers, to be able to have a family like that and just, especially at different age levels, be able to really, connect with them and have them connect with each other and just be on this adventure together. And then you've got the Hornsby and Halo stuff where it's, each of these poor kids have these distinct families that are rearing them behind them and raising them. And the difference in their upbringings and their current family surroundings gets even crazier as we go. You'll see, but yeah, it's I've sort of been on really one big family odyssey from the get go in a way. So,
well, you've mentioned in interviews that how you've written Damian Wayne and John Kent is heavily influenced by your relationship with your son. Is the same true for any of the characters in the Rocketfellers or Hornsby and Halo?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, there's a specific moment I remember in Batman and Robin when I had, which I've told before, was there's a scene where they're heading out for the night, crime fighting wise, and as they're getting dressed, Robin just Damian picks up Bruce's bat boot and holds it up against his smaller boot, and so that came from just literally, I remember going out into the snow with my son and watching him do just that and like going, oh, that's a cool bit. I got, you're always stealing from life as a writer. So nothing's sacred. So, but there's so many of those moments. And, with John and Damian, and then even now with Hornsby and Halo and the Rockefellers, it's all of them. The funny thing is when you do a big family book like Rockefellers too, and even now working with Francis, who has kids of his own, who are younger, and now mine's, 22. Yeah, you're drawing all the time from it. I think, as a writer, I think a good writer, you have to draw from real life. That's the best stuff. Fiction is really real life to me. There's so much good stuff happening in front of us every day that's the stuff that you can pull out and dramatize. And it connects with people on a straight emotional level, which they get. And it plugs them right into the story easier because it just makes it relatable, just like on Superman too, with that I did with Pat Gleason. It's Superman was not doing great, and then we interjected the whole family aspect of it, and it got the numbers went up drastically, and we had a whole bunch of readers who never liked Superman were suddenly Superman fans, and I was talking to people at shows for years about it. It was a great thing. It was a really cool way to get people into Superman. And with the Rockefellers, it's a really nice way to, when you've got all these different age groups on the family, from grandparents straight through to young kids, I've had all those people. I'm using my grandparents have long since gone, but I'm drawing from stuff that how they were, my own parents, myself as a parent. Francis is throwing stuff of his way of being a parent, and what stuff that his kids did. And so, yeah, you've got this great melting pot of family stories that can translate into every character on the spectrum, right through to Hornsby and Halo, which, these two kids, and there's, each of them have a little bit of me, and then and I look at it as a little bit of my son, in each of the angel and the devil, right?
Yeah.
Because we've all got the light and dark parts of us. We've all got those, it always goes back to Star Trek with me. There's always the good Kirk and the bad Kirk episode. And that's really key. It's like Two-Face, who's a great character I loved writing back in the day. Each of us none of us are interesting if we don't have that. If all of us are just goody goodies completely, there has to be shadings. There has to be some semblance of gray in all of our lives, in all of our personalities. So as a writer, you try to mine that from and / steal that from everybody around you, and try to get that on the page and into the characters, and that gets people on board. I think for usually for the long haul, because I think one of the things for action, I love action. Don't get me wrong; it's some of my favorite things to write, but I do love writing just boom, boom, boom between characters when they're having these small moments and intimate moments, or action is the best things on comics now is the soap opera elements to a degree. If they're done right, if they sound like real people, if they're dealing with it in a great way, an interesting way, and not a cliched way. I remember going to I remember when The Matrix first came out, and I was in DC at the time, and they had a special screening for us before the movie came out. And the minute it ended, I turned to my fellow editor beside me, and I said, "Oh, we're effed. This is it. They can do the action now. Because like until that moment, sure, there've been some action movies that had some, but all of a sudden the superhero action. Now you knew when you saw the first Matrix, you were like, that's it. They're gonna take this stuff now, and they're gonna blow us out of the park visually. And because you're on a printed page, action is not, you just can't do it like a movie or a TV show anymore. So you have to make sure that the action that's happening is, you've got to have characters that you are so deeply care about or love to hate going through it. As long as you don't have any apathy to the character, you're good, because you just can't, if you love or hate them. But if they're going through some stuff in the action, that's where you connect. Otherwise, they're just cardboard characters, and action on a page is boring. It's like, oh, okay, another robot fight, another world destruction, another multiverse, yippity dippity, who cares? But the characters going through it, if you got those characters that you care about, then you're plugged in and you're on for the ride. And that's the key now to the Ghost Machine stuff, is like we just so love these characters. And I mean, I love reading the other guys' books too. And I'm like, it's funny when you'll read because we have a box, and I'll pull the issue out and I'll read it, and then I'll right away I'll text. I'm like, oh man, that was cool what you did, and then they do it back to me, and so we're always it keeps you on your game too, because you always want to be like, it's not in sort of like, oh, I want to beat them in sales or this or that. It's purely like, man, I want to create great stuff, and then it just goes across all of us. We all just want to bring our A game to every issue of our Ghost Machine books, so that when they're collected, like I said, that immortality again is on all this new stuff, and be really, really proud of these books. And I mean, the Junkyard Joe book I'm looking up on the shelf, the deluxe edition came out. Oh man, what a great book! When I read that, when I was reading the last issue, when Jeff had sent me the floppies, the digital things, I was like, Jeff, man, this is like some of the best work you've ever done. This was,
I agree.
And with Gary bringing it to life, oh my God, it was just great stuff. Yeah, everybody's just kicking butt, and Mayal, who's done a great job on Devour. I read some of her future stuff that's coming out, and it's really, really good. Yeah, it's some good stuff. A lot of good stuff on the way with all the talent. Lamont's got a great script, really, really good. I didn't want to get into it because I don't want to spoil any of it, but it's really great. So everybody's kicking ass, man. It's great to be a part of.
I think
Yeah.
the best thing, like you guys all working together, I like all the books I've read from Ghost Machine, like all the separate universes. But I was really excited about Rockefellers because Bruce could read it too. But it's like those characters are so well done. And if you're a mom, you can relate to the mom. You can
Right.
relate to like how she feels about the kid. If you're, you know, kids of the different ages, there's someone for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. And it's like a book that's just very inclusive. You know, it is like you just said. You can open that book up and gravitate to any of them. You know.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're a robot villain.
Yeah. Wait till you see the villain stuff, though.
I'm so excited.
But you're saying like the ones we haven't seen even yet, right?
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff, and the character in Rocketfellers too, who's after them. I don't know. There's so much great. I just turned in issue 7, and it's a great issue with really getting into some backstory on her, and I can't wait for the readers to check it out. And there's a really cool character coming up in Hornsby and Halo. That's going to be visually interesting as hell, and but just have a really great bad. Just going to be a real bad person.
You know what though? You need like a really vicious villain.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
I like the mystery that you guys are building too, because sometimes I read a lot. Like I read a lot of books, a lot of novels. And so you start to kind of be able to, I don't write, but I read so you can like see where stories are going. And I don't know what's going to happen next in the Rocketfellers. And there's something really exciting about that.
That's great. That's great. That's that's always a funny thing. We talk about that. I know the last show we were all at, I think it was in New York at dinner. That's one thing we brought up. It drives us crazy as creators or writers and artists where, sometimes you get a lot of feedback where I don't know, I don't like this. I kind of don't know where it's going. I'm like, isn't that you're paying all this money? Like when I go to a movie or a TV show or a comic, I don't want to know where I don't want to be able to completely break it down and say, like, you can watch a show now, right? And you could be like, and the next scene's going to be this, and the next scene's going to be that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this is who the killer was.
Yeah, I'm so glad I spent 2 hours of my life watching that or reading a book that exactly follows a template where it's like, I want readers to pick up a comic and say like, yeah, I want it to be a bit discombobulated. I want it to be a little bit off balance and not know, because some people are like, oh, well, I remember there were some, little things on, I don't read a lot of reviews, but on first issues I tend to. And I read, and a couple people were like, I don't know if I just want to stay with this because I don't know where it's going. And I'm like,
that's the point.
I know.
Like, to be able to get, 6-8 books into a series and have that like sixth sense reveal where you're like,
yeah. I mean, it's the best. It's the best.
The best. Yeah. And I feel that coming from the, both of the books you're putting out, right? Like,
yeah, we're trying to really keep people guessing and giving a sense of like, it's this. Because like, if you read Rockefellers, one thing I want to almost make sure I get out with you guys too is that, one of the things is, like you mentioned earlier, Becky, is like it's a family odyssey, but it's not a G-rated, it's not a juvenile. These aren't juvenile books. These are just the thematic element is about families. And, it's like any good film, like, be it Up or a Pixar or any, it starts with it's already written to a couple issues, but it starts with a death. And, you don't expect that death. You're thinking, I thought this was supposed to be a G-rated family book. It's like, hey, you did show your kids Bambi, right? And you did show them Finding Nemo, or you showed them Up. I mean, in that amazing scene Up in the beginning. So, it's a book for all ages is what, I wanted to really make it something that was, 10 years old to 100 years old. It's something that everybody can read and pull out something to enjoy at every different age. I mean, it's like I've said, like, when you watch a Bugs Bunny cartoon now, some kids are probably going, oh, Bugs Bunny, what's Bugs Bunny? But if you watch a great cartoon or any of those things where, you'll laugh at something at 10, but then when you watch it at 25, the good ones have all this other context built in that you're laughing at stuff that now you realize these guys put in for for people who are older.
Yep.
So it makes it timeless. And that's how we're approaching these books. We want it to be, timeless and go across all ages. And I hope, I know some people aren't picking the books up because it says Family Odysseys and they think it's a G-rated book. That's not that. These are books that are for everybody and you can enjoy them no matter how old you are. So just, wanted to ring that bell.
Yes. And we echo those sentiments now and often. And the thing is, there's no content that would be inappropriate for, a young person, but there's also a lot of content that will be most interesting to an older person, but everybody's going to be able to enjoy it. Side note, Peter, do you see the Lego that is in the corner above Snoggle?
Do you know what that is?
Do you know what that is?
Oh, it's the up house. Yes,
it's the up house that you were just talking about.
I thought that's why. It out.
Yep.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We've watched that.
It is one of my favorite movies. I think it's like the first 10, 15 minutes to be able to pull out that much emotion.
Yeah, that should have been nominated for Best Picture in my mind. That's a movie that, like sometimes I think some of these movies that's where I think some of them go wrong sometimes. Yeah. They get then too cutesy with the talking animals and this and that. And back. Like, what was the one with the jazz one? I forgot that was with Jamie Foxx.
Soul.
Yeah. Soul, man. If they would have just stayed with the human aspect of it, they didn't need talking cat or whatever. It's like sometimes they go too far. And I think some of these movies could just, Up, if it was just, they got a little more grounded, it would have been just, but I still that movie's, that's a phenomenal flick.
No words. And you got to feel joy, extreme heartbreak.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so we do have one question that a lot of fans have asked kind of about this one detail, and you brought the character up. So can we ask about, I don't know if I should say villain because I don't know if this is the villain or if there's a larger villain in the Rocketfellers, but the antagonist that's pursuing them, that's female and at least is partially cybernetic or something like that, is her name Kronex, or does she work for Kronex?
She works for Kronex.
And is her name Vertex?
No.
Okay.
Her name. So her name is Raina.
Did we just learn that for the first time on this show?
You are the first to know.
Do you want me to cut that out?
No, you can keep it.
Oh my goodness! Thank you so much. We'll keep that. That's
all
awesome.
Of that,
though.
You are the first. You are the first on planet Earth to know.
Excellent.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. So, I just in Ghost Machine 1 in your previous story, somebody named Vertex is also mentioned. So we'll just leave that out in the ethers, right? Because we don't know about that.
And I do have to say, sometimes Kronex is there. Vertex is probably going to fall away. I'll be honest with you. Right now, because sometimes when you start out of the gate, you have certain things, and then all of a sudden, as you're working, some things start to fall away. So, I don't think you'll be hearing much of Vertex. Let's put it that way. But Kronex is still there, and Raina is our evil doer at the moment.
That's exciting.
Right, that's cool. Yeah. Curious to find out why.
And wait till you see. I just saw some pencils for and a couple pages of inks from issue 6 of Hornsby and Halo. And holy moly. Because it's a big epic issue. And it's crazy. It's just so crazy where they are and this journey they're on together. And man, oh man, Peter Snabrig is just killing it. I can't wait for people to see issue 6 too. Because right now, I believe for the trades, it's going to be 1 through 6 for each of the trades for us for Rocketfellers and Hornsby Halo. So there'll be the first 6 issues, and we'll be in each of those trades.
I feel like that'll be a great series to read once I've got all 6 just in one sitting.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
But the one thing we wanted to ask about Hornsby and Halo 2 is obviously nature versus nurture is a big theme. There's so much subtlety in that book that Becky and I have talked about on the deep dives for the first 2 issues, which are past episodes that are already out. And if you're not reading that book, like you have to check that out, and you have to take the time to catch it. Like there are so many little nuanced things, like the fact that, I mean, can you tell us, just answer this one fan question. So Zach Hornsby is in his bed, and you notice that like he doesn't, like his stuff doesn't look very new, but he's literally he's using a cassette player. Is that because it's meant to show that his parents won't get him anything nice because it is modern day?
That's partially, but also we'll find out how more of an analog kid he is.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, the subtlety aspect of it, because I take a lot of pains for people to, because you can't as a writer, I've learned it from other great writers. You can't write for everybody, right? You can't write. You have to just write what you want to write, and you put things in there that you hope, and some people will pick up. And there's like, even though you see it in, like, what was it issue 2 or 3? What's out now? I forgot. Is 3 out?
3 is about to come out. 3 is going to come out the day that this episode comes out.
2 was the Demon Motorcycle Race.
Okay, so right, so there is so think of that's that I hate saying it was great,
which was awesome.
Yeah, it was metal.
But like that, I mean, the wonderful character work that Peter Snabig does in that scene where you don't need to and I'm a big that's why I say you can sometimes turn off the volume, so to speak, or take stuff out if you have the right artist as your collaborator. Where that scene, I wanted to get across just who these kids are and who they and who their parents are in just that one scene in issue 2, where the earth is quaking, earthquake, there's some tremors, and you see Rose's parents, go bags. Rose, where are you? Boom, they're running, and the kids, they're focused, and out the door they go. And then you cut to Zach, and all that starts to go down. And yeah, so it's like he suddenly is like, his parents he's looking for his parents. Nobody, and he goes outside, and they call him and say, "Hey, is the quake over?" And he comes out, and he's like, his parents are safe on the lawn, and right then and there you can see where their priorities are. He's not their priority, and and he's just, and that look Pete drew on his face, it's just like, it's the kid realizes, like, boy, my parents really suck.
I love that scene. I also, Nick and I have talked to, like, since becoming parents. Now, our son is 9. He turns 10 this year. But, like, sometimes that hurts my heart. I'm like,
yeah.
Good. I'm glad. That's
your kid that much.
That's what I've been trying to do. I need you to cry. I need people to cry. It is. I like when, I mean, that's what you want. I mean, as a writer and as a, I'm sure Pete too, and Francis is like, you want to, I mean, there's so many shows where, people will come up and literally be crying in front of me, some stuff that I did in DC stuff, it's just, be it the Robin Silent issue, or I wrote a thing back in the day when Final Crisis, when John Jones was killed, Martian Manhunter, and everybody leaves and they all do their bit. And then Batman just leaves because it was always established that John was an Oreo cookie fan. And then Batman puts an Oreo cookie on top of the casket. And it's all silent, no words. Puts an Oreo cookie and walks away. And people are like, it's like, and right away, that's like, to me, that's who Batman is to me too. It's like, I can't stand the Batman who's just a cold vigilante guy. I like when he's funny. I like when he's angry. I like when he's emotional. I like when he wears his heart on his sleeve. I like a Batman who runs the gamut of emotions. and that's what I do with these books, with these characters. We've got that freedom to do that. I remember catching some flack on some of the stuff that I did with Batman, during Batman and Robin from higher up. Batman wouldn't do that. I know. Let's have him do this. Make him, give him more stuff. And, it's one of those things like in Batman and Robin, Frankenstein, there was, he captures Damien's dead, and he captures Frankenstein, and takes him apart, to try to find out what makes him tick. But Frankenstein's head is separated from his body on the table with all the other body parts. But the head's talking. Still, Frankenstein's like, hey, this ain't cool, man. You shouldn't be doing this. He's trying to figure out. But then, Dan DiDio was like, hey, dude, what is Batman, a crazy Nazi doctor? He's got all these body parts now. He took this poor Frankenstein apart. I'm like, yeah, that's how desperate he is now to try to find a way to bring Robin back. He's like, no way. So on the public comic, there's a big blanket over Frankenstein up to his neck, and you don't see the body. And then later on, and the funny thing was, months before that issue, Dan was like, we need to shake these characters up. We need to swing for the fences, show them like they've never been shown before. And then I did that, and then he's like, cover that up. And then when the trade paperback came out, he called me upstairs. He goes, you know what? You did exactly what I asked you to do. And I covered that up, and I completely went against what I asked you to do. And he goes, that's what we should be doing. So for the trade, the blankets, so that we went back to the original art. He goes, we're going to put the original page up. And, so that was much to his credit that he realized, that we were shaking things up for an emotional reason. It wasn't just a gotcha moment or a silly moment. It was an emotional moment. And that's how Rockefellers and Hornsby Halo stuff, that earthquake scene, or the grandma scene in #1. Oh. It's stuff that, and the grandma stuff will be reverberating throughout the series. Because you don't want a death to not mean anything. It has to, it stays with people. So, that's one of the things, again, in Batman and Robin, editorial was like, why is he still thinking about Damien? Like Four Fish. I'm like, it was his son. He's dead.
He'll be thinking about him forever. Yeah. What are you talking about, you monster?
You wanted to turn the page in 3 seconds and go, all right, another Robin gone. That's the way it goes. So, but you come up against some of this stuff, but with these books, with Rockefellers and Hornsby Halo, it's like we can really sort of explore the emotional context of stuff and play it out, for a nice longer time to show that, stuff continues to reverberate in someone's life, even when they don't know it. They even there something's coming out in a distinct way, or a personality trait or something. So it's a blast. Ghost Machine has been a godsend at the right time, and in this business for us as creators, and the energy and from the creators and the support staff, everybody behind us, and just it's great. What a great team everybody is on that company. Really great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously we heartily agree. Everything we do is Ghost Machine, and that's been an absolute pleasure being able to talk to you today, and we're very excited to see where these books go, and that is the case, that both Hornsby and Halo and Rocketfellers are ongoing indefinitely right now, as far as everybody knows, right?
Yep, they are monthly books. Maybe skip a week here and there based on a deadline, but we are monthly books, so they'll be out all the time. It's really key to make sure that stuff these days is out there. When we say it is, and if it's a week or so late, big deal, because, the one thing at Ghost Machine 2 is, you don't want to then just sub in another artist just to make that deadline, if you can help it. If it's going to be a week or two late, and you can keep the original creator of the book as the artist drawing it, that's what you want, because aesthetically, when it all comes down to it, right, when you pick up that deluxe edition or that trade paperback, you're seeing that pure vision, and the original guy is following through as much as possible. And then if there is a fill-in, and the way we're working too is like, when we know we want to give some, people a break or a chance to catch up, you get really good people to come in, and it's not a fill-in, it's another chapter in the ongoing story. So it's not like one of those, hey, let's just do a throwaway issue. Everything is integral. If there's a fill-in artist or an artist, a guest artist, it's not a throwaway issue. It's a key to the whole tapestry of the book. So, everything's important.
Paul Pelletier on Geiger 7 through 9 is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Yep. Looks great. And
amazing.
Yep. And big stuff is happening, and you don't shy away from saving it. It's because it's the kind of market too. You don't want any of these guest artists and the book where the original artist is not involved to just be filler. You can't do it these days. It's gotta be a forward momentum, and there's got to be stuff happening every issue that just keeps driving the themes home and the characters home. And it really means a lot because I got to say, when seeing what the price points are on comics and going to the store myself and buying stuff, comics are expensive. So I know that everybody on our team understands that and have talked about that, how much they want to make sure that people are spending really hard-earned dough, and they're working hours, and everybody's trying to make a living, and they're spending stuff for us and wanting to read our stories and enjoy them. And so we want to make sure they're getting top-notch stuff from us. So we're really thrilled, and we're really happy that you guys are out there, ringing the bell for a company that really means a lot to us, and that we're not just phoning it in, and that we know that at least guys like you can understand that you're ringing a real true bell, and it's not just like a sales bell.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
More cowbell.
Yeah. I got a sickness, and the only cure is more Ghost Machine.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. We're having a lot of fun. Francis is killing it. Peter Stayberg's killing it, and all the other GM guys and gals, or whenever I say guys, I don't mean guys.
It's like you guys. We're Midwest.
Yeah.
We know.
It's everybody's
it's like
just
dude at this point.
Right. Yeah, everybody's killing it, and they're just having a lot of fun doing it. So we're just happy that you guys are out there, blowing a horn, because there's so much stuff out there, man. You need all the help you can get for people to find stuff. And so any little bit helps, and we really appreciate you guys for, being out there and pointing people in the direction of the book. So thank you.
Of course.
You make us want to do it. And I got to tell you, we've mentioned this to a few of the other folks that we've had the pleasure of doing this with, that, obviously I love comic books. I've gotten Snoggle to love reading comic books, but there's no limited edition 9.9999 slabbed autographed this, that, the other thing that you could offer me in place of getting to chat with you about this for an hour that I would. No, I'm serious. We do this because we want to be able to do this. And then what's amazing is the amount of people who will then come to us and want to talk about that. So it's not just us that you're talking to. You're talking to so many people all over the place, all over the world. Literally, we have people all over the world that we're fortunate enough that want to listen to this, but they only want to listen to this because we're talking about all this stuff that you guys made, and we're enthused about it, and that's all you. So you can thank us, but we're here for the long haul, and that's the reason we always ask: Are they ongoing? Are they ongoing? Because that's what we want.
Yep. And we're here.
Yes.
Exactly. We're here for the long haul too. So we're
rock and roll.
Yep. Absolutely.
Cool.
2026, we all go together.
There you go. Oh
2026. Oh my God.
2027, 2028.
How long was I writing for?
Again, thank you so much. And thanks to all your listeners out there. For if anybody's listening and haven't picked up the books and now go to check them out because of this, I have a feeling you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you read. So thank you all. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap for us with another Ghost Machine creator interview. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight on the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast.
Oh, thanks.